Okay, first of all, thank you, Adriel, for inviting us. I'm super grateful to obviously share the space with you. As for the event, it is July 21st. It is coming up on a Sunday, 4 to 8 p.m. at 918 Bathurst in Toronto.
Okay. Listen, we're going to do that again.
Okay.
We're going to come back to that, but I want to make sure everyone got that because some people don't make it all the way to the end of the podcast. So if you only made it,
that
this
makes
far,
sense.
yeah, at least you got the event information. Here in the cut, we challenge our guests to finish a tub of ice cream before the end of the conversation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Cool Table. If you want to listen to us live, you can listen to us every single Wednesday at 11 a.m. CJTM in Toronto, metradio.ca online. My name is Adriel Smiley, aka AdrielSmiley.com. AKA Adriel Smiley Official, AKA The Godfather. Now, today we have a special episode. These are my favorite episodes, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
When we talk about things that are actually important, these are favorite episodes. Now, we have two, I want to say leaders in the community with us today. Case and Josh, thank you for joining us. You have an event coming up. Now, before we get to everything else, I want you to plug your event because you're going to plug your event multiple times here. We're going to just break the show every 10 minutes for you to plug the event. So at the top, plug the event, and then we'll get into things.
Okay, first of all, thank you, Adriel, for inviting us. I'm super grateful to obviously share the space with you. As for the event, it is July 21st. It is coming up on a Sunday, 4 to 8 p.m. at 918 Bathurst in Toronto.
Okay. Listen, we're going to do that again.
Okay.
We're going to come back to that, but I want to make sure everyone got that because some people don't make it all the way to the end of the podcast. So if you only made it this far,
sense.
Yeah, at least you got the event information. I want to start with Josh because I think when it comes to mental health, it's like an interesting field to even choose to get into.
Yeah.
Like, how often do you hear a kid at like 9 years old saying like, one day I want to deal with mental health.
Yeah.
You know, one day I want to help you with mental health. That just doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
So I guess tell me what you wanted to do before you wanted to get into mental health. Like, where
it did happen that way for me. Though,
from when you were young. Okay, yeah.
I mean, I had a few things I wanted to do, like be a chef, that kind of stuff. But I think it was when I was 11. You ever see that movie Freaky Friday? You guys ever see it? Like, right? Like, okay, so the mom in that, she was like psychologist, therapist. And I don't know, there's something in me that was like, oh, maybe I could do that. But then I forgot about it until years later, until I went through my own stuff and that kind of, So it was more just like, oh, yeah, I'll be a chef or something that's more like reachable.
Yeah.
But there was this passion of like, oh, I could do something like that. But there's really not that opportunity to do it or get into it. I grew up in a small town, so there wasn't really that opportunity to latch on until later. So, but yeah, it was like 11 years old. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do.
That is so rare.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess seeing that, you're like, okay, that looks like something I could do.
Yeah.
Because I think as well, even like coming from a Korean background, even parents understanding what that even is, it's like, is that a real job? And I was telling you guys a little bit before we started talking to my barber about it. It's almost as if you go to therapy, it means that you're like crazy.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, there's so many levels before crazy. Like there are crazy people. Listen, live your truth, live your lies. But before we get to crazy, there's a bunch of levels before that. And I feel like the stigma has been so heavy that
very much so.
All of a sudden it means, okay, they're going to therapy, something must be wrong with them.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you get into it? Like, where was your mind at? And was there like a moment where you're like, okay, I really want to help people?
Yeah, honestly, like very similarly to Josh, I like growing up, I grew up with like an older brother who really struggled with kind of like adjusting into Canada. We're from Sri Lanka, so migrated during that influx, and I just see my older brother just like kind of like crumble in the system. But a lot of racism, a lot of like as a man trying to figure out like his identity and gang related stuff and substance use and things like that. So I kind of grew up in that space, and so I was always like, what's up with my brother? Like, who's helping him? What's going on? So not necessarily me going through all of that, but seeing a family member go through that, it obviously impacts your family because we're a unit.
Yeah.
So that kind of like really sparked the idea of like, man, like I really want to work with youth. And yeah, like out of high school, I went straight into undergrad and focused a lot on like community work and a lot of youth work. And yeah, and then later on just continued, kept going, and then did grad school, and then became a therapist.
So when you were younger, was that an option that you thought was real? Like that was a job that you thought could happen? Or was it like, I just want to help in whatever way that I can?
Is it for me? First of all, my parents were just like, listen, if you know any South Asians or brown people, it's literally like a doctor, a lawyer, or maybe an accountant.
Maybe an engineer.
Sorry, I forgot the engineer. I'm sorry, mom and dad.
You're canceled.
Literally. And so my dad actually wanted me to be a cop.
Okay.
Which surprising, he's just like, I think you got it. You could do it. And I said, and I did want to, but no, my heart, like my passion went towards like really being with the kids in the community. And so my parents actually struggled a lot to understand what I was doing. They're like, I don't understand how you're making money like that. So it was like, oh, okay, but I had to normalize that. Like I had to, being in the field, like I had to like really go through like my own set of trauma and be like, yeah, man, my brothers, my dad, like nobody really believed in it at the time. Now they're, I'm still working on 2 of them. One of them, yes, on board.
Okay.
But it's a stigma. Like it's we're in 2024. The conversation's still fresh.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And for you, same thing?
Yeah, well, it was in like a small town setting. You kind of had your like certain jobs that people would do, right? Like that were accepted. So it was like none of it was talking about therapy, right? Or mental health. I think of our, school programs, there was all these programs set up for people to go into, like if they wanted to do a trade, right? We had all the woodworking shop, all that kind of stuff. So that was all set up in school, but there was nothing for mental health. So I kind of just like, I might have been excited about it at like 11, but then kind of fizzled out until I went through my own, as Case was saying, my own trauma. And then it was like, oh, I could step into this, which I did. That's how I started out. Went through my own addiction stuff and then went into addictions counseling once I got out of that. But there was really none of that, younger, right? Or in school. It kind of was just a roundabout way of me getting into it.
I always feel like getting into therapy in general is almost like having entrepreneurial spirit, even though it's not necessarily that, because there's not that distinct pipeline like there is in sports or music, or even if you want to get into cooking, you have to kind of think, I just want to do this and I'm going to figure out a way to do it. And so I always kind of give you guys that extra credit, because I think that, no, but it's true, because that pipeline isn't there. And it's like, you can go to school for our ways that you can kind of train and gain that experience, but you have to have that initial thought of like, I don't really know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to try and help people.
I would say this. I said, first of all, the government needs to pay for therapy.
Facts.
That's where I stand. And I'm going to say this. I say this with my chest, because especially like in this climate, we're in Canada, and like immigration laws, we already know, we see where we live. There's so many different cultures that are here. There's so many different people that are here. And I think it's unfair for this society, this economy to have this hustle culture and to kind of like grind, and then also expect us to take care of our mental health and stuff when that's not even advocated. I'll tell you right now, this is like me doing over a decade, I'm not trying to age myself, but doing it over a decade of like work and research. And it's just like, why aren't there organizations and companies paying for therapy? And if so, why is the amount so small? And as therapists, as business owners, we should get paid just like any other profession gets paid. So I think to start there, I think that would be very encouraging for folks to be like, oh, you're going to pay for it? Sure. And I think those that are working in fields, they should have all of the tax dollars. Where are they going? I think it should be allocated towards wellness. And for those, parents that are not working, social assistance, there should be some type of program that's provided through there. So I think that incentive would encourage people to be like, you know what? Yeah, I do need therapy and I can afford it. Because as therapists, a lot of the things, people are like, well, I don't go to therapy because it's too expensive. And we charge anywhere from like $150 to $200 a session. That's a lot. So if there's like a mom or a dad, like even like single parents, and they have 2-3 kids, how are we really expecting them to come to therapy?
And that's what I always think of, there's a group of people who maybe want to go, but whether it's a mix of the stigma or the finances why they don't go. Then there's the other group who's like, do I even need therapy?
That's a whole different conversation.
And that's why I thought of this idea of it being mandatory. Is like, maybe that would change the way you think about it when, your friend has a kid and maybe you're the godmother and you see how they've kind of grown over the past year and you're like, well, maybe this is not so bad.
It's not. And just to like actually answer your question, like, I think educating people about the importance of therapy, and I say this to say that like those people with the money, those people with the platforms, that's where I'm trying to target.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, where has if I think of when like I was growing up, or maybe you were growing up, or you were growing up, like I think in schools, there wasn't that conversation about it. And so therefore, if it's not in schools, there's no conversation about it. There's not likely to be conversations at home, right, about it.
Like, where do we go?
And so there was none of that. So you're right. If these people that have platforms or whatever, now we're seeing a mental health kind of spike.
Yeah, like
and
a
shift
surge,
in percentage. And we're seeing like Hollywood did, I think, a decent job with Inside Out.
Yeah.
That's
Inside Out, yeah.
Inside Out. I just saw the second one.
Yeah.
Very great.
So
but like,
cute.
I'm thinking, okay, where else are people getting their information? Like this movie just came out now and people are like, I hear people messaging me like, oh, you're a therapist. Like I'm learning about this finally. And they're like 30 plus. This isn't children, right? So we're only learning about this now.
And that is a perfect example. That hitting the box office like that and everybody watching that and all ages watching that should tell people that, oh, this is some important stuff that we need to actually keep doing.
Because I think, too, this is why I'm kind of proud of us as a culture in a sense of everyone being so into their like mental wellness and trying to grow that. Because a lot of times your opinion on that has already been made through school.
Right.
Yeah.
Not hearing about it through school or hearing negative things about it, you reach your 20s and your 30s and you've decided how you feel.
Right.
And so to see a bunch of people kind of change their opinions or be able to grow, that is impressive.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm seeing it. So I my agency, we're all Black therapists. And so we really open up for the Black community and in whether Caribbean or African households, big stigma or just big, like, no kind of therapy. And so I have people for their first times in their late 20s, 30s, 40s going to therapy for the first time, right? And they're breaking that cycle in their family of wait, that we don't go here. No, actually we can go here and there is help here. And so they get to take that education and actually educate their kids now, create a whole new cycle. And that's what I love seeing, right?
Shout out to Soul Care Therapy.
Amen. Yeah, a little plug there.
No, we love that. We love that. Before we move on, let's get one more plug of the event. It's about that time.
Okay, I love this. Okay, and again, so this is second annual event that I host. It is called Let's Talk You and Me. This event is initially what's happening right now. Having conversations in your community, feeling a sense of belonging, talking about mental health and therapy and all things. July 21st at 918 Bathurst in Toronto, 4 to 8 p.m. Panel discussions, performances, mix and mingle, networking. It's going to be a vibe.
Yeah, be there or be square. Simple as that. What you said about people getting to therapy later in life is something I've always thought about because I've seen my parents personally just grow over the past 10 years. And I've just been so proud of them to see them grow because sometimes people don't feel like they can keep growing as their life goes on. And one thing I realized, I've always been someone who hangs a lot of older people. That's always been my energy. And almost everyone has some kind of trauma from their parents. It's almost like it's like built in. It's like death, taxes, trauma from their parents. And when I got older and realized that, I thought about this idea that that's something we just assume is just going to happen. And so when you talk about things you deal with, a lot of time in therapy, my friends at least told me they talk about their parents and their partners a lot. And I think about, our parents, maybe our grandparents, and to think about your grandparents having trauma from their parents, who they probably never spoke to anyone because they're from a different generation. Their parents probably not around to speak to their parents about it. And I think that we are the generation that is going to change that. And this is the beginning of that. So I think that we're in a very, very good space. Obviously, we can do a lot better, but...
We started.
We
started. That's what I say. We started and we're pioneering this. And I think, and that's so beautiful to hear that, like, you're having conversations with your parents and you're seeing your parents' growth. Because remember, your parents are also living their childhood that they never had.
And that's exactly it. Is like, I said this before, when children are born, we are so delicate with them because, of course, they're children. But you're going to be an adult longer than you're going to be a kid. And as an adult, you are living out the things you wanted as a kid. And so how your life goes as a kid is so, so important. And so I think, like, creating this environment that we are creating for people of color is changing that right in front of our eyes. I have some FAQs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get it.
I scoured the interwebs and I was like, what are people really wondering about therapy? Now, this first one, I think this one is like a pretty easy one in terms of it being a myth and not reality. But I want to hear your thoughts. Case, this one's for you first. It says, psychotherapists have ready-made solutions for all of life's problems.
Absolutely not. Y'all, that's false. You understand, we are humans too. And so therapists we have specializations. So you have to find the right therapist. Not one therapist can have a solution for all of the things. And also, I always tell my clients this: you're not, therapy works if you want it to work, but also the goal is, yes, to get treatment, but recognizing that sometimes in the time that we have you, 6-8 sessions or even longer, we might not get there, but that's not it. It's not the destination, it's the journey. The journey of you actually committing and investing in therapy and actually choosing yourself, that is number one and foremost. And so whether you have 1 session or 10 session, at the end of the day, if you find the really good therapist, you're still going to walk away with some gems.
It's good. Yeah, I always say, I'll say this to my friends, therapist friends that we're talking about it. I'll even say to some clients that, so there's popular names in the therapy field like Stephen Porges or Sue Johnson, that kind of stuff, or like Freud, right? He's got some theories. But I always say, Sue and Freud and these people don't know my clients specifically, right? And I'm just meeting my clients specifically for the first time, right? And so I talk to my clients basically that word of journey, like I'm journeying with you and I'm taking my skills and resources to really find more out about you and how we can go. But I'm not coming in with all these set things and trying to put people in a box and be like, this is where we're going to go. That's the idea. It's called therapeutic alliance or therapeutic relationship, is we build that with our clientele. And that's what makes a good therapist, is being able to connect with someone's humanity, right?
Yeah.
I can't go in with this robotic approach and be like, okay, this is what it's going to look like, and get upset if you don't follow it.
Yeah.
I got to connect with the human in front of me, right?
Yeah. I think there's also this misconception, and maybe it's partly true, you guys can let me know, of will a therapist properly understand you? Like, there's some people who say, okay, I'm a black man, I need a black man or black woman as a therapist. Or someone says, I work in a certain industry, will the therapist understand my lifestyle, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Does that play a part in terms of, how much you connect with a client or how much therapy can quote unquote work with someone? Because I do think there's certain people who say, I don't want this kind of therapist.
Want me to go?
Yeah, you can go first.
Yeah, I think there are it's again, I'm going back to attachment, right? As kids, what really helps kids form is this idea of mirroring, right? You want to see these things mirrored by your parents in terms of when you are laughing, you see them laughing and they can tend to your needs. And this idea of mirroring is great. It's why we have friend groups where, they're like us, right? They're not complete opposites, right? And I find that people like therapists where there is some mirroring, right? There is something. There's not completely opposite, type A, type B, this culture, another culture. Like, if everything's completely different, you might not vibe with that therapist. But I say, and I'm really starting to think through this, and maybe you can touch on it too, but I'm really going back to that human piece, right? There are people that I don't have much things in common with that are on my caseload that have extended past the typical 8 to 12 sessions. And that's because one of the biggest things behind me as a therapist is connecting with the human experience. And I think it fits in with what Case and I were talking about, of we went through our own traumas, right? We went through our own life experiences, and there's things about building, whether resilience or things through that, or even just sitting in that, that can connect with the human experience, right? So with my clients, it doesn't matter, all of them, what I'm trying to connect with is that human, right? And so I think mirroring is good. It's important. And there's lots of clientele that I have that I mirror with, but even the ones that I don't, what I can mirror with is the human experience, because we're human, right? And so I think it's a both and, maybe not an either or, but I do get where clients are like, yeah, I don't want to work with this therapist. I want a therapist that's like this.
Yeah. I would definitely echo that. And I think I always tell people, I'm like, definitely go with the therapist that you vibe with, because you want to humanize the process. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to feel comfortable. You want to be like, ooh, I'm going to therapy.
Yes.
I can't wait to kiki with Case. Oh my God, that should be my podcast.
There you go.
But you do want that, because I do have some clients that come in and are like ready for the girl chat. And I said, bet. And that's the type of therapist I am. And that's okay. That's okay. But I also have a 59-year-old client. And I'm talking about, her name is not Betty, but I'm going to call her Betty. But Betty's like from England. What do I have business with Betty from England? But Betty will sit with me and we'd have a time. But I learned so much from Betty because she lived in such a different time. So that I'm really proud of her to be in this space. And so I'm learning from her and she's learning from me. And then she's kind of like asking about her grandparents. Like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, well, these are the times when so it's like you just never know. But I think don't shut yourself off to exploring the possibility of what the therapist might look like. But definitely find something. Like, if you're a racialized individual, absolutely find a racialized therapist. They're going to help you understand some of that layer of trauma that we deal with.
Yeah, I think what Josh said about the human experience is something I always think of. Even in my line of work, I was telling this to my little brother, I said, I can connect with anyone. I think that you get to a point where you see almost anybody and you're like, we have something in common.
Yeah.
And I think the other person might not think that. So they see you and may assume, oh, no, there's no way. Yeah. But it's up to you to kind of see that, okay, we both have been through pain. We know what pain feels like, or we know what this feels like. Yeah. The example I think of is, I grew up a ferocious reader. I still read now, but I have more of a life.
So not as ferocious.
Not as much as when I was younger. And I'm on the national radio board, and I've had other board members talk to me about their love for reading as well. And I can see the kind of surprise on their face that, oh, this guy really reads. and it's not a matter of stereotyping as much, but like, I don't think someone sees me and go, I bet that guy reads, but I know that I read. So when I hear that you say that you read, I'm like, okay, we got something here. Yeah. And I think that's a part of the stigma of going against therapy is like, will they really get what I'm going through? Yeah. And I think there's always this individuality we have of what I'm going through is so particular. Yeah. It's such a unique thing. And then you realize, no, it's not as unique as you think. And it is something people can understand. This is one that I have heard people who I know who've gone to therapy actually say this in terms of them being worried about this when they went to their first session. It says, psychotherapists blame a client's problems on their upbringing. I want you guys to talk about that, because that is one that came up a lot of people being worried about, that when going to therapy.
I'm really curious, like the word blame. Yeah. Like, that's a really interesting word to use. So I don't know if that person's experience, and I'm sorry that they had that experience.
Therapist Case coming out like
sorry.
Getting firsthand. I love
but
it.
But the word blame, I'm like, whoa. So I don't know what that person experiences, but I really, really hope that they do give it another try, because I could only speak for myself. I think it's interesting. I think naturally we are trained just to kind of look into like psychological impact of our clients and what they go through. And there's a lot of research that has been proven that, obviously our experiences in childhood and stuff like that do alter like our brain chemistry and all that stuff and how we can show up in adulthood. Do I think every single conversation need to be about that? No. No, because we could also look at your present you, right? So there's a lot of different, there's so many different modalities that we use, but therapists can also get really creative. So I don't think we need to jump to childhood all the time. Also, you got to meet where your client is at. If the client's not ready to dive into the history, then as a therapist, you got to find another way to hold space for that client.
Yeah. I think I don't have much to add. That was a great answer. I think for me, like I said, I work influenced by attachment theory, which really does deal with childhood. And I work from a family systems lens, or just a systems lens in general, which is not, it's more than just the individual's bad. There's other things that have gone on there. And oftentimes, I'm going to be honest, oftentimes with a very high percentage of my clients, there is impact from home or from childhood, right? That we could trace to their adulthood, and what they're experiencing in adulthood is things like you had a an experience when you were a child, and that caused you to have certain defense mechanisms or protecting yourself, safety measures, and all of a sudden you're an adulthood and they're not serving in you anymore, but and they're impacting you and they're putting you in fight or flight and that kind of stuff, right? And so then you're realizing, we do a little bit of work on this, and I actually learned this thing when I was in childhood, and maybe that protective factor in childhood was like suppression, right? Suppressing stuff. So now you're an adult and you're realizing, okay, I've suppressed so much stuff down. Yeah. It's boiling over. And so in those ways, we can go back to childhood. But, maybe it's not so much, we're just going to unpack everything here. It's like, if we notice something, how can we now talk about present you? And what does it look like to find healthier ways or ways that serve you more now to deal with your mental health other than suppression, right? So I think it's hard not to at least touch on it. But like you said, you got to meet where the client's at. If a client comes into therapy and they're like, I want to work on time management and things like that, and anxiety be around time management, I'm not going to be like, well, was your daddy, good with time, right? Like, things like that.
That's wild.
You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. And I think what Kay said about using the word blame, it's like the word blame is kind of the key word in this.
Yeah.
Of like, blame feels so negative.
I know.
And I was saying this earlier. I said, a lot of what I've learned from therapy, from my friends who've gone to therapy, is like the growth of self-perception.
Yeah.
And sometimes how you perceive yourself is part of you not wanting to go to therapy or part of you not wanting to get involved.
Come on.
Yeah.
Adriel, come on. Speak on it.
And so I think that, to me, that is the biggest win for just this, I call this era where your mental wellness is coming at the forefront. Because I think now we're at a place where if someone's mental wellness isn't right, or they do things that maybe make you feel like they're not right in that way, people are calling it out. And whether it's directly, it's like I might be kikiing with Case, shout out to the podcast, and I say, yeah, Josh is not right now. Like and I think even that kind of verbiage we have to talk about those things now is so huge. So what you said about using words like blame, I think that's like even part of that being an apprehension is, you're perceiving yourself as someone that's like, listen, my past is not the problem, and maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but even that's the perception of there's no way that that's a problem.
Right.
But I'd even invite them to have a conversation about that. Like, I'd be like, well, talk to me about that word.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me about, like, why do you feel like it's blaming and et cetera. Like, I'd get to know them a little bit more.
Yeah. This next one, I made sure I put this down because this is something that I've had a personal relationship with in terms of my friends and their relationship with therapy. Yeah. And it's psychotherapists prescribing medication. And I think that this is...
Are you going to reach for meds or something?
She's about to run.
I'm about to wrap. Oh.
But I think that this is something that is like, again, a whole separate issue in terms of people being avoiding of therapy. But just talk about both your relationships with that in terms of clients either wanting that or not wanting that. Because I think that's something that is in some people's minds in terms of deciding if they want to go or not.
Yeah. You want to start? You want me to start?
You go.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing coming in my mind is I don't believe it's in our scope of practice, like legally.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, that's the main thing I wanted to clear up, because I think some people legally think that, and then they either go or not go with that in mind, and it's like not even involved.
We cannot prescribe.
Yeah. One thing I learned in ethics class, and it was actually a very good thing my ethics teacher really, really taught us and to be okay with, is this idea of not feeling bad. Building a referral network, not feeling bad if you can't fit with a client, or if a client does need, say we start working on anxiety and then we start to realize, maybe this is more of a chemical issue and we need to involve someone that can prescribe. There's that referral for me. If I know how to build a good referral network and I get to know my client, I start to know, okay, maybe this person that's on my referral network can be a good fit for this person, right? And then there could be that conversation and it could be smooth and my client could feel like, oh, Josh cares and there's a safety piece here and I trust Josh, so I trust the person he's sending me to. But yeah, therapists shouldn't be afraid to just admit when it's out of their scope of practice. Hey, you know what? This isn't in my scope of practice. Here's what I can help you with, and then here's what I can refer to, right? And trying to make it, again, that you're advocating right? It's an advocation. So, your needs and the support you need, it might not all be coming from me, but I can advocate for you in other ways by referring, that kind of stuff. So if you're coming into therapy and you're wanting prescribed, or you're coming with the stigma of like, oh, that's all they do is just prescribe meds. Like there's ways to talk about this, what's actually in our scope and what we do, what's out of our scope, and even that it's a big conversation when you bring in kind of medication and stuff like that. But.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say the same thing. Like I think it's so interesting, this conversation. Again, before a therapist, I'm Mia. So personally, my lived experiences, I personally believe in more of a holistic approach than I do medication, and I'm transparent about that. And I think like we're not able to prescribe medication, so it's just like the transparency to just like educate folks about that. And then secondly, it's just like also we do like a harm reduction approach when we're working with those that are like struggling with substances. And so our job is not to be like, you need to get off the pot. It's like, well, let's talk about what pot does to you. So with that, which is like same thing with medication. My clients are inquiring. I'm like, I was like, okay, well, these are the medication that, people like some psychiatrists and whatnot prescribe. And I always tell people, I'm like, do your research. You guys, you like everyone has access to, most people have access to the internet, right? So it tells you what all the medication is. It tells you about the side effects. It tells you could do your own research. So you don't really need us to tell you what these look like. The chemicals are gonna show up differently in your body. But I think that's also something like one of the things that we also work through is like, having like your autonomy and your dignity, right? In that. So who am I to tell you that you need to be taking medication? You know what I'm saying? I'll let people know, I'm like, this is the approach that we're going to work with. This is the therapist that you have. If you're okay with that, then we're going to kick it. But if you're looking for more of the medication route and whatnot, then we'll go to the referral. Well, and you could try that. Some people do just medication. Some people do just therapy. Some people do both.
That's why I thought this was a great thing for us to talk about, because I think a lot of people do have the either or approach. And I've met people who it's like, get me on the medication, I'll be good. Yeah. And I think there's some people who it's like, I'm gonna do anything before I take any medication. And I'm not here to say which is right or wrong. I think everyone can decide for themselves. But I think that kind of putting those two together and mentioning the referral of, maybe you start with therapy and then we realize that you need to be referred to someone else. Yeah. And I think that it's almost like you need to kind of figure out what works. Yeah. Instead of deciding beforehand, therapy's going to work for me, I'm going to figure out a way for it to work, or medication's going to work for you, I'm going to figure out a way for it to work. It's the idea of like, let's figure out what works. Yeah. We'll work on it together, and whatever works is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And I think that referral, at least what I was talking about, fits into that both and, right? So even a referral, could be to, again, talk with their family doctor. If their family doctor is, trauma informed, mental health informed, that kind of stuff, and is actually advocating for their client. So then they're working with their family doctor, but they're still going to therapy. Like I think I've seen many people, and again, I don't want to put anyone in a box, but I've seen many people do the both and. They're on medication, but they're also doing therapy because again, we're learning in trauma therapy.
It targets two different things though.
Yeah, true. 100%, right? And so there's a holistic, there's a more when we're talking about wellness, there's many aspects of wellness that we do as psychotherapists that it doesn't just have to be, this or this. There can be a whole bunch of factors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually so happy that we're having this conversation and that this is like something that people are going to be able to, I guess, tap into at the event, but also tap into online as well. Because I think that even the idea that it's okay to talk about it is a huge step, I think. Yeah. I think about, people I've known my whole life, and I've seen them behave certain ways, and I'm like, you need someone to talk to. And I think that there's this idea, at least with men especially, that you're just suffering in silence. Yeah. And that's just like,
talk about it.
You're accustomed to that, and like that's not even wrong. Yeah. And I've heard people say that like they're like usually your wife or your partner, that's who you would go to. But there are certain things that you're just not going to talk to your partner about. And I think that if you only have one option to talk to, and there are certain things you can't talk to them about, who's the second option? And there are not always friend groups that have that, that I guess leeway to talk to each other. Yep. And why I think about that a lot is because I have a lot of female friends. And I have some talks with my female friends that I know I wouldn't have with my male friends. Yeah. And so I kind of have that outlet to speak about things where this is not my romantic partner.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about them judging me or not wanting to be with me. This is my friend who she gonna be here regardless.
Yeah.
And not everyone has that. So if it's not therapy, let's say someone is still too scared for therapy, they still have apprehension, what advice would you give to someone just in their normal life, whether it's people around them or steps they can take by themselves in terms of just finding that next level of mental wellness? They realize something is going, wrong with them, or they feel a certain way, but they don't feel ready to go to therapy yet. What would you kind of suggest to them?
A lot. Go ahead. You go first. Do you want to go?
I would say, I think it's about I think people need to just slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I think for yourself, just slow down and ask yourself, what does my routine look like? That you can determine.
Mm-hmm.
We know what's healthy and what's not healthy. We know getting, drunk every weekend and avoiding the problems, we know that's a Band-Aid approach.
Yep.
We know that abusing this, or we know that my anger, you know at the end of the day, you know what it is that you need to really start changing up. So I think I would start there. I'd say take a step back and slow down and ask yourself, what does my everyday look like? You know what I'm saying? It's just really a step ladder approach. So if it's not therapy, if it's not even the friends, and if it's not family, it's I just got me right now, because some people don't have friends.
Yeah.
Some people don't have family.
Yeah.
Some people are just literally living life lone wolf, doing
Solo
the thing.
dolo, yeah.
And there's greatness in that, but obviously I pray that they do get community at one point, but that also means is there some healing that needs to be done? So if you can't do the therapy, I say, look at your routine, and then there's so many good resources that are outside that people can tap to on their own. We're in a time right now where so many podcasts, so many researchers, so many people that are actually doing some really dope work in the community. At least follow them then, at least be in those spaces and learn from that. So I would say that.
Yeah. I would say one thing I tell my clients that is so underrated is, and you might disagree, I don't know. This is what I say. You might not. Awareness is so underrated. I tell my clients when I see my clients step into a sense of awareness and be like, oh, yeah, I've been doing this. That I pause. I actually say I'm a pause in here. This is good because awareness actually gives us a starting point, or even just being able to contemplate. Oh my gosh, this is actually something that I've been wrestling with, and I have actually avoid my emotions. I suppress, or I protect through getting angry. And even knowing why I get angry, right? All that awareness is gold, because it actually can help you put one foot in front of the other. If you're coming into therapy, maybe a reason why maybe people might be scared of coming into therapy is because they have an unknown. It's so, the unknown is scary. I don't know how many times I've talked about the unknown in different contexts with my clients. That's scary for people. But if you can build that sense of awareness, right? Even emotional awareness, building an emotional awareness is so key. That's even a healing process there, right? Oh, I'm aware that when I'm around a certain person, that my nervous system is going into fight, flight, freeze, right? And that doesn't even have to be the language. You just might know, hey, I'm feeling a type of way.
I'm about to bounce.
Right?
I'm about to bounce.
Exactly. Right? But being aware of that. Oh, now I see the pattern. Now I know every time I'm around this group of people, my nervous system is up here.
Yeah.
So, are there certain things I can do? But being aware of yourself, and that's where what Case is talking about comes in, is sometimes it's not easy to do if we don't slow down.
Yeah.
I think the awareness piece is huge. Huge.
Yeah.
That's something that's super big for me. And I always try and check in with myself.
Yeah.
Because when you're in it, you almost are way less aware. You can't even feel it. And there's a quote that I saw online about going through the storm instead of around the storm. And they kind of broke it down in a real visual way of, if you try and go around the storm and the storm is coming at you, it will take longer because you have to go around the storm. If you go through the storm when the storm is coming at you, that will be an easier path to whatever you're going for. And when you talk about awareness, I think that's something that it takes a lot to get to that point. But you're right, that's a huge, huge first step.
And I just wanted to add, to just fuse both of it together, the awareness and the routine, y'all need to put those thoughts down. So I don't know if it's writing, because sometimes my clients be looking at me like, I am not journaling. Yeah. And I'm like, that's fine. That's okay.
I tell them voice record.
Voice record it. Draw it, sing it, do whatever you need to do, but the thoughts need to come down. You get what I'm saying? Because
big
you got to
time.
step away. And we're saying this, like I'll speak for myself. I'm a therapist, but I still got to catch myself. I still we go to therapy as well. We've had therapists as well for ourselves. So I think you have to slow down. It's like for me, I know I'm very kind of like independent case. I got it going and all this stuff. But my guy friends check me sometimes. They're like, "Yo, Case, honestly, like you should." A husband's not gonna come for you if you always out here saying like I got everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And I had to work on that, but it's just like I got to slow down.
It's crazy we made it almost 45 minutes before mentioning journaling.
That's a stereotype of therapists. They're just going to talk about journaling the whole time.
I know, but it's like we just broke that stereotype.
But we
going this far because like I'm a big journaler, and I think like journaling is like that. The question I asked you guys, journaling would have been my answer for that one,
right?
Because I think journaling is almost within itself an exercise that slows you down. No matter what.
Yeah.
And I was telling my one friend, like, I'm a big meditator as well. Like, my morning routine is meditate, journal, read. Yeah. And I was telling my friend, I was like, journal and meditate, whether you're good at it or not, because you're giving yourself double the chance of slowing down.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you journal, you can't journal quickly. It's just not gonna. Yeah. It's not gonna work out. Yeah. Your thoughts are either gonna come too fast. You have to slow down. And these are the kind of things that you talked about slowing down. I'm like, that is huge.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that force you to slow down. And therapy is one of them.
Yeah.
When you have that person there to kind of walk with you and say, listen, you're going to have to re-say that, think through that. And so I like that we kind of focused on this whole idea of slowing down, because I think that this is very much a Western society type of deal.
About the hustle culture.
It is.
Culture doesn't tell us slow down.
We just did a burnout workshop
on it.
Crushed it, but that's been a big area of mine, and even in just my trauma specialization of recognizing where our nervous systems are at. And a lot of us were in that sense of fight, flight, freeze, right? Constantly, not just when we're, naturally it might look like, okay, if there's an actual threat, we're going to feel that. But if our bodies are constantly there
living
all the time,
there.
right? That's when we see the wider impact of that. We're going to be agitated, distressed. We're going to be anxious. That adrenaline, cortisol, that's at very high levels, isn't going to be metabolized properly, and we're going to feel that in our bodies, and that's going to impact us, and it's going to impact our energy. And we're seeing that wildly. And this idea of slowing down through whatever means, you have a good trauma-informed therapist. You have things like journaling. You have things like meditating, breathing, right? We don't just say those things because it's like, here's what just breathe. No, but if we can get your nervous system calmed down, if we can get this sense of regulation, if we can get some nervous system safety, that's where some of the awareness can actually root, right? If I'm just go, and it's like, I got some awareness, it might just stick on the top of my head for a day. But if I can actually have that slow down time, that's where that awareness might be like, oh, wow.
And I just wanted to say, like, journaling is also hard for people. Like, just wanted to just recognize that. It is hard because you're also now asking people to like, okay, well, can you go back and talk about the assault? Can you go back and talk about the trauma? So we do recognize that it is hard. So if it is, and this is why you have to talk to your therapist. This is like, it's not like your therapist tells you what to do. That's not what therapy is. You also have to tell your therapist what you need. That's really important. This is a relationship, just like any other relationship. It's like, receive, give and take, give and take. You got to let your therapist know, be like, I can't journal because it actually traumatizes me.
Yeah.
Break that down. Let's talk about that.
That's why I bring in creative expression.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have a client that's, a musician, right? And so it might not look like, hey, just journal. It might look like, write a song.
Yeah.
Or to asking them what they want to do. And they're like, oh, yeah, I want to do it this way. You can do literally whatever. There's no kind of set thing. But there's those elements of it. Am I getting the awareness? Am I getting it down? Am I able to process it and talk about it? You can do that through gardening,
dance.
through a podcast, dance.
I used to do dance therapy with kids.
Yeah.
Because I used to work with youth. So they're looking at me like, I didn't say nothing to you. I said, bet. I'll put the music on. I was like, you want to come dance with me? Not like that, but like, it's like, okay, why don't you show me some, whatever it is. But we use dance therapy. There's a lot of therapists that use dance therapy as a mode as well,
Music
right?
therapy
Expression,
as well,
like move your body. Like, how do you feel? People connect with that.
And it's crazy because we're creating a new norm in a sense. And I remember I had an ex who she was a dancer, and during the pandemic, she felt like she was losing herself because dance was a way that she kind of felt calm.
Yeah.
And I think like when I was starting on my healing journey, one thing that I kind of stumbled on by accident was playing ball. I grew up playing basketball, always just something like, something you did for fun. You weren't thinking it too deep. And I was in a time where I was really in my head about, I felt like I wasn't a good person and I was kind of down on myself. And I ended up playing ball one day and I kind of, like I said, I can't be thinking about that while I'm in the game. And so my mind was freed for a second, playing ball for 2 hours. And then when I came down from playing ball, everything was less heavy. And I stumbled on that of like, okay, so when I play basketball, my mind is free. Things are kind of slow. Even though I'm running full speed, things are kind of slowed down. Yeah. And so it's those things in everyone's life, I feel like, that you got to, I guess, find or create that you realize, okay, like I'm going to do more things that bring me to my center.
And it doesn't always have to be like things that you don't want to do or burdensome. Like, oh, I got to do this and, it's going to help, but I got to do this. Listeners, us, like there's articles out there. I literally pulled one up mid-session with a client just from searching it. But trauma therapy is going in the way of realizing that play has an impact on healing trauma and trauma's impacts, right, on us, whether that's feeling burnt out or anxious or agitated, right? There's a correlation between play and us healing. And, seeing that, being played out in my clients' lives is amazing, right? And it doesn't have to be, it could be whatever. What is play or playfulness look like to you? Does it look like ball? Does it look like playing Legos? Does it look like, I have 5 plants at home, 5 house plants that I've been taking care of and seeing them grow and that kind of stuff. That's regulating for me. I didn't know it was going to be. I didn't know, that when I was, 10 years old, that at 31, 32, I'd be playing with plants and it would be something that's regulating. But there's so many things that we all can take advantage of that gives that play or playfulness that actually does impact our nervous system.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to some of the fun questions.
This wasn't fun?
Depends
fun to me.
Depends who you ask.
To be like, ooh.
No. Listen.
Go another hour,
No, this is my jam. Like, we could have this talk for like 3 more hours.
Oh, no. Totally.
So, yeah. We're in a spot where it's like, age real, stay focused. This podcast has to end at some point. But July 21st.
Yes. Y'all heard it. And it's July 21st. It is happening in Toronto at 918 Bathurst, 4 to 8 p.m. Tickets are available and it is affordable, $40 tickets. We have discount codes if you have a group coming. And it's honestly, it's your opportunity to stay connected. Because one of the things we hear is like, where are these therapists? And like, who is having these conversations? It's happening. So we're here. We're talking about it. We want you to be involved. We want to see you. I want to see you. I want to meet you. And I think just as Josh and I are doing this work in our communities, we just want to keep doing the work. And we're really passionate about it. And so it's just giving back. And it's just kind of like curating more space for love and joy and unity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Happy to hear it. Okay. So now we're going to get to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
When people get $100 million, they always get an exotic animal. This is how it goes. I don't make the rules. Okay, Michael Jackson with his monkey, Justin Bieber with his monkey, Mike Tyson with his tiger. Yeah, that's how the game goes. So when you guys get to that $100 million level, what animal will you be adding into your life?
You can go first.
Me? I got two. I got 2 coming to mind. I always like gorillas. Always.
Okay.
I don't know why. If they're just, I don't know if they're like. Because they're powerful or they're just cool looking, like they just look cool all the time. No
One or like doing. You got a group of them.
Oh, I guess I gotta think ethically here, right? Gotta think ethically. Yeah, a group, a family of them.
What are they called? Group of gorillas. Anyways.
Yeah.
But he has $100 million. He can afford to have them live great.
And I'm gonna have them live great. So a group of gorillas, or I would say elephants. Elephants are smart. They have good memories. I can hang out with them. Yeah, I would say either those 2.
I like those 2. Elephants is one that we've gotten a couple times. Yeah. And some people say they're a good vibe. I have a couple friends who have hung out with elephants and they're like, good vibes. Yeah. Good vibrations.
Gentle.
So I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Y'all, I don't even have an answer to this. Wow. What am I doing? This animal's going to live with me?
Is it animal's going to live with you? Like, again, like Mike Tyson and his tiger. Justin Bieber with
Yeah,
his
no,
monkey?
Oh man, I don't know why, but a flamingo comes into my head. But I don't know why. You just said exotic. I'm like, I think a flamingo is exotic. Is it supposed to be exotic?
Yeah, I guess that counts.
Oh man, I guess I'll take the flamingo.
What are you gonna do with it? It's just gonna have
It'll
a walk
look
around,
pretty, or a peacock, and have them in my garden. I'll have a bunch of flamingos and a bunch of peacocks.
Oh, so you're doing it for the aesthetic.
I'll just be like, and also like they can't be inside. They need space. So like I'll put them in my garden.
Oh, that would be nice though.
You know, like, and I'll be, like you guys can drive through, you'll be invited to my house and you guys can look at all my friends and they'll be outside.
You would have the best garden because most people's gardens have rabbits, squirrels, spiders, rats.
Absolutely not.
Flamingos.
Yeah. Okay.
Rodents, I'm out of there.
I'm not mad.
What
at
is
that
yours?
One. I don't even. My actual answer would probably be like a super cool aquarium.
I was just thinking
And
that
have
too.
like every
people do that.
Yeah, every single
Not a shark. A shark?
shark, no, but like some cool squid, maybe some octopus. Like
I would do it.
Dory, Nemo.
I think that would because I feel like I'm a dog person. Like if it's dog versus cats, I'm a dog person. But I feel like an aquarium is low maintenance with all those and visually. I'm here for the aesthetic too.
What if you know what I'm picturing? Massive mansion, the whole
Floor? No, people do that. They have that in a bedroom.
Floor. I don't even mean bedroom. I mean a whole floor of the whole place.
I was picturing the whole wall. I was like
picturing the wall.
Yeah,
the floor,
one wall is just an aquarium.
I've seen that.
I want to be going to the washroom and looking at
Josh?
looking at
If Josh's girlfriend is listening to this right now, good luck.
Yeah, she is. She's gonna be.
Oh my God!
I'll do it anything.
Can you? No. That's all. Depending on what you have.
Doing whatever.
The floor. Here's the thing with the floor. I feel like the floor would get old faster than the wall, and I would hate to like get used to.
And what if your guests are scared?
Don't come.
Oh my God! He said bet. Don't come to
Or
my
have
house.
some money that's left over, that $100 million of this sheet that comes over.
I'm
the floor
done.
or
You would
something.
be the
or tinted.
You
You get tinted
guys?
glass.
You'd be the favorite uncle though.
There
I
we
think
go.
like
Your nieces
you'd be
and
the
nephews.
favorite.
Yes, your
like,
children.
Toddlers and children just they don't even hand them a
my
toy.
God, let's
They
go.
just
I
lay
wanna
on the
Hire
floor.
some like Disney person that actually goes in the water, like a mermaid. You ever seen those ones?
Oh yeah.
Y'all,
She said, "Nah."
I just
do
feel-
not give this man $100 million.
he can't be trusted.
Yeah, right.
No, I think we're on the same page. And then I think if it wasn't going to be aquarium, I would have like a ranch with like horses and stuff like that.
Is that?
I guess that's not exotic enough.
Yeah, no.
I just feel like I like the gorilla idea, but
Is a gorilla exotic?
yeah, when have you seen a gorilla in someone's crib?
So anything that's usually not in the crib.
Yeah, like
So
that's
we're talking about everything other than cats and dogs.
yeah, and like,
Chickens.
not parrots or like turtles
birds, okay.
and like bunnies. Even people have pet bunnies, hamsters. You know.
I just, can I just say something? I just feel like human beings are not trained enough to have animals because they'd be doing some really wild stuff.
I'm gonna get the training. With my
Then that's okay. You have to be a certified, like,
what
you
I'm
need
gonna
to
do.
know how to take care.
I'm thinking full-time staff, like Tiger,
You gotta
Yeah,
hire.
that's all.
Tiger King level. Like
Why do we
I
want
got
tigers?
I got full-time staff that can train me and
To,
have a
like-
good relationship with the animals. You know how the rich people have nannies that basically raise the kids? This is like that.
There we go.
Like nannies for the animals.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Men
nervous.
and women are so different.
I'm sure that's someone's dream job. Like I'm thinking, like
I'm sure.
that's someone's dream job. There was
Yeah,
a podcast
that's how they put food on the table. So I need to do that so they can feed their families.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
No, they're hearing this podcast
justifying
and saying,
that.
"Josh, hire me." They're
Yeah.
like, "I'm ready. Like I'll spend all day with your
They're
elephants."
gonna hit you up.
I'm helping them feed their
They're like,
families.
ooh,
I'm
this
good.
therapist wants all these animals.
That would be a vibe.
therapy animals. Yeah.
That would be a vibe, though.
That is.
Yeah.
We have
No, but
therapeutic dogs.
Think about if you met your therapist and they told you they had like a couple elephants and gorillas in their backyard. You might think they might be a little cool. So
Yeah, therapy gorillas. Not therapy dogs. Yeah, I got therapy gorillas.
therapy gorillas, yeah, completely different. Gorillas is the one that I'm just scared of because
Yeah.
I don't even know. I used to have
that.
like nightmares about gorillas. So when you said
Really?
gorilla, I was like,
Out of the Jungle Book, is that?
no, I don't know what
Planet
it
of the
is.
Apes?
Just getting attacked by a gorilla.
yeah, like you guys seen that thing on TikTok of like if a woman's in the
Oh
forest
my
with
gosh.
with a bear or a man,
Bear or the man.
Yeah.
they're all choosing the bear.
Yeah.
I
That's so sad.
yeah, it is.
Like, how do you guys feel?
I understand it. Like I honestly didn't expect anyone to choose the man, so I'm not really surprised.
That is so sad. That's really, what does that say?
It's sad, but I think what it really says is that there's a disconnect in terms of men and women's self-perception of themselves. Like, I think men perceive themselves as more inclusive or more safe than they actually are. And I think that women are perceiving men as like dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're going to talk about this on July 21st.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what I thought of as like when I saw it, I wasn't surprised. Like, there's this TikTok my friend sent me, and it said, if a straight man thinks that he can beat up a bear with his bare hands, he's probably a misogynist. and I said to her, that might be spot on. That might be spot on. But it's like, I think that a man who thinks he can beat up a bear probably doesn't think that makes him a misogynist. So it is a matter of self-perception where it's like, I just think I'm strong. Like, I work out, you know?
A bear? Like,
no, you obviously have no shot. But I think it's a self-perception where it's like men are probably not thinking of themselves as I'm dangerous, I'm not respectful, I'm misogynist. So I think that's what that leads me to think of is when will the gap close where a man will say, you know what, I actually understand why you're choosing the bear and I'm going to work to fix that. But I think most men probably saw those TikToks and were like, these women are crazy. How dare they? Yeah. When it's like,
Yeah.
But, well, that's another podcast.
Yeah.
That's another podcast. Last but not least, on the radio show, we have the segment called Wednesday Wisdom, looking for a motivational quote or saying either you remind yourself of or the people around you. I'm going to let Josh go first. What's that quote for you that either you remind yourself of or the people around you?
A bunch of quotes, but one that's been coming up a lot lately, it's a simple quote. It's small. And it's, we learn through unlearning. And I really liked it because sometimes unlearning can be difficult. It could be hard. It could be, but it's also this, maybe there's this duality of just this beautiful experience as I've unlearned a lot in my life. I've actually learned more about myself, right? And it's not a bad thing to unlearn or to let some things go. Things that how, trauma impacted me as a kid, was hyper-awareness, right? And always having to have the answer and all that kind of stuff. And then through that, you make beliefs and values and way you see the world. And through unlearning, I actually got to learn more about who I truly am. That's not always masked or not always... There's that bug you were hitting earlier, eh?
I think it went on my nose.
I know, I saw that, But it's like, I learned more about myself as someone who doesn't have to be so masked or protected or whatever. I got to actually see like, oh man, through unlearning of certain behaviors or cognitions or, thoughts about myself, self-criticisms, I just learned so much about myself. So I really love that one. It's we learn through unlearning.
I like that.
That's a really good one. I got quotes like on my Instagram like all the time. Like when I just think of it, I'm like posting it. But like right now, I would say that's coming to my mind is like, I would say probably like rest to be your best. Like I would say that. And I think I say that to say it's such a common theme. Like we need more rest. Yeah. We're not designed. We got it all wrong, by the way. Like we're doing this whole thing wrong. Facts. We're not supposed to be working like this. Yeah. We're not. We're actually not. And then it's going biblically. But anyways, we're not. We're not supposed to be working like this. So people need to understand what rest looks like. We're not resting. We're sometimes feeling shameful of being like resting. It's like, oh, I'm not productive. So I say rest and look and ask yourself, what does rest look like for you? And then I think through rest is when you can do all of the things that Josh and I spoke about, some of the things that we tapped into, self-awareness and reflection.
Capacity. Like capacity is one I see grow huge when people actually rest. Many things. And it's not just that you're resting so that you can expel your energy again, but through that resting, we regain some of these things, capacity, perspective, even just things like joy, right? Yeah. Like as I've seen people rest, it's like, oh wow, I used to be here. Like, my thing has been neutral. Every day I'm neutral. I'm not feeling really any emotion. And it's like their system is so burnt out that it's almost like their baseline is apathetic, right?
Yeah, and almost numb.
Numb. And as they do some of this resting and really rest, like, I'm not telling people to do this, so don't hear this, but I had a client who determined that rest for them looked like quitting their job.
Wow.
It was rest for their nervous system, right? And in that, I've seen their baseline go from like just burnt or bitter to content, joyful, loving themselves more, taking care of themselves more, getting out that playfulness, right? And it started through things like rest.
And rest your way. Like, don't feel so compared. Like, if Adriel's like, yeah, my rest is like doing this and doing that, it's like, cool.
Man quits his job now. He said, this is my way now.
Listen, no one trying to tell you. I actually quit my job 3 years ago, but that's like, everyone's journey is different, but sometimes you got to bet on yourself. And so if you're led for that, you do that.
Took 4 months. I quit a job, took 4 months off. I had to. Like,
y'all, we're not saying to quit your jobs.
No.
That's all we're saying. Because the economy, we're in a recession. Don't do it like that. But rest so you can be the best. And best again, also, you get to define these things, like redefine all of these things in your life. Do not need to live by what you think it should look like. Just do it your way. It's your story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that we ended on rest. I think after everything that we talked about on this episode, ending with rest feels fitting. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us. It's so great. You're so good.
Thank you.
You've been doing this for a long time, huh?
I'm decent.
Yeah.
You're really good. No, you're really
I'm all
good.
about reading, man.
I'm a podcaster too, and I'm just like, yo, this guy has it.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you guys coming through. I'm happy we could have this conversation. These are my favorite episodes because something that is very, very important to me. So I'm happy that you guys could come. Anyone listening to this, please make sure you go to the event July 21st. This is very important. So I think that your mental health, to me, it doesn't get more important than that. And I think that as a society, we have put so many things above that. And this is why I love this conversation, is because to me, your self-perception, finding yourself, loving yourself is number one. Yeah. In life, that's not guaranteed. And I've seen it with people of every age. Yeah. Every age finding themselves in their 60s saying, have I been, self-sabotaging myself this whole time? And for us at the age we're at now to be cognizant of it, have that awareness, like you said, nothing is more important than that. So I really appreciate you guys being here. For everyone who made it to the end of this podcast, you know what to do. Leave us a rating and a review on all your podcast platforms. 5 stars, not a single star less, of course. Find us on the interwebs at The Cool Table Live, on Instagram at The Cool Table, on YouTube. All episodes of The Cool Table can be found at adrielsmiley.com. And of course, until next time, know yourself, know your worth.